Oh, hey Ben. Hey Joe. How you guys doing?
Doing great, Jake. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's Ben?
I'm awesome. Jake, what are we getting into today?
We are talking about the season one recap and wrap party of Actual Disruption.
Ooh.
Awesome.
It's been a fun little journey we've gone on together, hasn't it?
It's been great.
It feels like a Netflix special at this point.
Oh, I don't know about that, but it has been a lot of fun collaborating with both of you. Getting to learn a little bit more about what's going on in different aspects of the industry. We've had, look at all the brand names that we had on this webinar for the first season. Ben,
I don't want to brag, right? But like, look at this. Look at these logos, right?
And you did a lot of the introductions, and we got to meet so many cool people, so many innovators and people that were like kind of changing the industry as we went through this pandemic together. And it was so fun. And as we look at the names and the people that joined us, I just want to do a quick little kind of recap about what we learned, what we thought about, the things that came out of all of these different series. So I don't know, Joe, what do you think? Let's let you kick it off.
Oh man, we kicked things off with the folks from Cvent, and they shared a lot of amazing stuff with us, including their record-shattering virtual event. That was pretty early on too. That was, I want to say that was April, right?
Yeah.
So just as quarantine was setting in, these guys were taking off.
Well, and it was interesting too for Cvent because by the time we had the All-Star reunion, they were able to tell us what was happening with that. It was like 4,000 to 5,000 for their normal conference, up to 24, 25,000 or more. When Alex joined us for the reunion. So yeah, that was a fun way to kick things off, especially since events were probably one of the more disrupted pieces of our industry. So
oh yeah, that was the one of the things we talked about. It's like how do you replace 60,000 people in a conference hall, and that was one of the things that actually led us to when we were thinking about what to do for the third episode. We talked to Amber, we talked to Liam, we talked about how the LMS is going to kind of play its part in the future of e-learning and in events in general. So that was a nice little segue, and they had a lot of cool
two
things to talk about,
competitors
too.
coming together on a webinar. I thought that was fantastic. Both class acts, both really good organizations, great technologies, great leadership. I thought that was a really fun one because though they compete, they also have some idiosyncrasies between the organizations that they shared with us, which was, I think, really great for the attendees for that session as well.
Yeah, they shared a lot of great insight about how to think about moving to virtual and how to think about the LMS in general.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was one of the more timely webinars because a lot of associations have really, looked at LMSs recently and are kind of making that one of their digital pivots.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then we kind of went a different direction with the fourth episode, and we brought Lee from Charity Engine, brought him on, and not only being just a hilarious guy, stand-up comic, he had maybe our most memorable quote or just
theme
idea,
or something. Yeah,
theme,
thought,
I guess you would say. It's just the Shark Week, creating your own Shark Week.
Have your own Shark Week. Yeah, that was a pretty profound thought. That I think a lot of organizations could benefit from, whether you do that or not. The idea of understanding how that works and how that some of the charities, C3 nonprofits, do that. That was a really fun conversation.
Really great. Totally different perspective than the traditional association point of view, right? He's talking about delivering a different type of member value that's not about a member benefit. It's about cause and, kind of the vision and the emotional part, which I thought was really compelling.
Yeah,
the connection
donor-based first member.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was awesome. And then our friends Julie and Dan Delcor and Association Analytics. That was fun. We got Julie talked about kind of looking at the for-profit sector and how they did things, how they use data. And Dan talked about how data isn't a luxury item, even though it's kind of been treated like that in the past.
Yeah, the for-profit versus nonprofit discussion I thought was great. I thought Dan Hickey representing his Data Nerd t-shirt really brought the right energy to the webinar as well. No, that was actually really a lot of fun, especially since, though it was just as good a conversation, but you get Amber and Liam who compete and represent two different sides of the LMS space. Julie and Dan are very complementary, where one's a product company, came out of consulting and turned into a product company. The other one's very in Delcor, leaders in data governance and data strategy consulting. And so that was actually a pretty star-studded webinar, I thought, that day.
And then we talked, one of the themes that came out of, Joe, you mentioned the 45,000 people at the Cvent event. All of the, more people attending virtual events, and you're getting all this data, you're getting all these leads, these potential member leads. And that's why we brought in High Road for that conversation, to say, like, what do you do with those?
Right. Yeah. Well, which for me too, and I sprinkled a little bit of community discussion into that too, because I feel like this open community strategy is something we'd started to see at the beginning of COVID, and open COVID groups and non-member groups and things like that. And all this member prospecting has gone on. And what do you do in terms of taking that and messaging outward? I thought High Road and Manisha especially brought a really good layer of conversation to that.
Yeah, that was really good for the audience too, to take a little deeper dive on marketing automation. Some concepts like progressive profiling, and they also bring their kind of point of view about best of breed, right?
Definitely. And that led into kind of our conversation with Reggie from Mahima, and getting the client perspective about content strategy and how that works, in the journey leading to product. And that's just a specific strategy of theirs, but how content can work for your members for engagement, and how it can lead to increased revenue. That one was fun. Reggie's awesome. So
Reggie's an impressive guy. I enjoyed that because I'd never worked with Reggie before, and I know you guys have for years. The way he was able to articulate what they're doing and kind of flipping the script on content and which wall that's behind or in front of. I was really impressed with Reggie. That was a ton of fun. Thanks for bringing him in, guys.
Great conversation with Reggie.
So in the last two of the year, we had Michael from Gather Voices, and Joe, I think you've talked about how he's disrupted an industry that usually relies on expensive high-end video production, and how that's really not that necessary when you've got a camera in your pocket that can do the job just as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things I enjoyed most about this season, is we had different players at different levels and stages of growth, right? And Gather Voices and Tazio kind of represent that, almost pure entrepreneurism, right? Like, these guys are starting up new companies and trying to fill a gap, and they're really the definition of actual disruption, right? I mean, classic startup story with Gather Voices, really trying to fill that niche to make it just so simple and straightforward to get videos from your members or from your company or from your audience, or really anyone.
Social proof.
Yeah,
it's really incredible software. It really simplifies a lot of common challenges with video.
It was interesting to hear Michael say that, we overlooked the fact that we have these like professional quality, video capture tools sitting in our pockets all day, and why don't we use them more or use them differently? And the way he said it was so much better. So I'm not going to try and reuse his words. But yeah, it's really interesting. And I feel like making video a little easier is something that is really special that they do across many markets. They've been around for several years. I know that you guys are partnered with them. We're just working on a partnership with them right now, but it's incredible once you really grasp, that literal, like, the ability to gather voices through their platform. Gather Voices, right? Little plug, like.
Yeah, I thought that was great. He shared a lot more insight than just about video, right? I mean,
yeah.
At least as I recall, it was, there's a lot more to it to him, as far as like the core purpose and the reason he's doing what he's doing. It's not just about the video, which I thought was really cool to hear too.
Well,
yeah.
and it's cool too. So fast forward to the Epi Tasio one that we had, like, we were talking, what was the topic of that one, Jake?
AI and machine learning. We had Jeff and Thomas.
As big as Epi is as a company and a product, and how that scales, from the mid-market all the way up to the largest enterprise organizations. Tasio is a startup, right? They were so aligned on some of the topics having to do with AI and machine learning. And I feel like, Thomas, who really complimented Cheel, right? Jeff Cheel, right? That's his name? He I'm that last name messes with me. They were so aligned on their discussion points around AI, and yet they're in very different places as a business and even as a technology stack and what they want to provide. Whereas Tassio is going to be a little bit more niche. That was really fun. We had a huge registration list for that and a really active audience. Actually, a lot of people curious about AI and helping define that for what that even means for their organization. So
right, and I think that's a nice little segue into kind of a teaser for what we're looking at for next season, calling it a season, but we got so much good feedback on that one that people were asking for like a part 2, more of a deep dive, looking at AI and machine learning a little bit more. But we also talked about, how do you handle e-commerce in the AMS? It's something that, Joe mentioned best of breed earlier. We talk about that quite a bit, and it's a different choice for different size organizations and the goals of those organizations. But I think that's an interesting conversation on how we can tackle e-commerce with an AMS, with an enterprise platform. I know the one that you guys are also real interested in talking about, it, as am I, is how to get an otherwise good website to the next level. Then we would love to talk about branding. Ben's got multiple brands that he manages. Joe is a branding person, and then the leadership stuff. So let's get a little talk about what we're looking at for season 2. And then I know Ben's got something to tease at the end.
Well, it's interesting to talk about the correlation between AI machine learning part 2 and what to do with e-commerce in your AMS, because for a long time, and you hear a lot of really, top tier consultants talking about this in social and blog posts on podcasts and webinars and all those kinds of things. We used to be, I think, as an industry, a little irresponsible about the amount of data that we would just throw in and shove into your AMS. And I think people have started to, even if they don't do a great job of it, they're starting to acknowledge data governance and like, what data do we bring in here and what data do we send to other systems, whether it be data warehouse or send it to a system that maybe it might be your CMS that can help suggest certain products or groups in community and things like that. So those things are really related. But Joe, which one of these topics is really like piquing your interest that you're most excited to talk about?
Oh man, I'm looking forward to all of them. I think they're all great topics, and they all track with our concept here, right? Every one of these is about actual disruption.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fascinating for me to think about every one of these and what the association industry is going to do to, pivot and evolve. You think about best of breed and how that's a big mindset change for a lot of people, moving past the generation that really invested in these huge monolithic implementations in an AMS and are really thinking about being more nimble with it and trying to do best of breed so they can leverage, really of the moment technology, right? That's what that's about. If you move your e-commerce to an e-commerce platform, you could potentially leverage things like machine learning and AI. And
right.
I don't know of any AMS to date that's really doing that with e-commerce, but that's an interesting conversation because there's a lot that comes with that topic.
Well, I agree. And especially the types of data and, there's certain data from different sources that people write back to their AMS and certain things that they don't. And so it's going to be really interesting. I think maybe we even need to work in a data governance piece because, that data that sits in there and writes to some of those tools and how those tools react with it is going to be cool to peel back, I think, which actually is a good segue into how to get an otherwise good website to the next level. I love that question. When everything is okay, what do you do? Right? You have to keep working and driving and innovating and trying to disrupt. And so, I think that goes with AI too. Like a lot of people aren't doing that. They don't understand it and, or they're trying to understand it or put a plan together to dip their toe into that. And I think that, this idea of once we've got everything put away and folded nicely, what's the next thing we move to? We don't just wait and be reactive to a problem. Let's try and step up our game in some way.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting one. It does ask the question, what is a good website to begin with and what's the next level?
Right.
So I'm looking forward to that one.
That's a good question. I'm gonna ask you that later because you're probably better equipped to
If you want to
answer that than anybody, we're going to come back to that, Joe.
I'll do a free site assessment for you on one of your sites.
I love that. I love that. Go to Adage and check that out.
Anyway, to wrap it up, this was an awesome season. Ben, thank you so much for, collaborating with Joe and I on this. We've had so much fun. It was one of the most fun things we could do during a time that there wasn't a whole lot going on. So we always looked forward to the week that we were going live with one of these webinars. We got 10 done.
It was a good year.
It was a ton of fun. We started giving out CAE credits for them about halfway through. But it was an awesome time. We're really looking forward to a couple things in January. Ben, you want to talk about one of those things?
Well, look, I'm not going to divulge too many details, but here's what I'm going to tell you. We looked at the list of attendees that we had join us, and I'll speak for myself, but it was easy to get some of these people involved. Okay. We had a star-studded cast of people that joined us to impart some wisdom on us, flip the coin, look at some different perspectives, and share with, and I won't share the number with you, but it's a gigantic list of registrants that joined us for webinars throughout the year. And I feel like we're really having an impact on the industry. And so we want to start packaging content a little differently. The same crew that you know and love here from Actual Disruption, do a podcast series breaking right now. This is the first time you've heard it ever. So podcast series, the Association podcast is coming to you. It's going to be the same crew that you love here from Actual Disruption. I'm not going to tell you who our first guest might be or may not be. I'm not going to tell you what our first topic's going to be. I'm not even going to tell you when it's going to come out, but watch for it in Q1. We got everything going. We've already got our crazy podcast boom mics going. All of us, audio's on point. We're ready to go. We're going to bring in some really great guests. We're going to broach some topics. We're going to package up content a little differently for you. And we're very excited to bring a podcast to you next year.
Yes. And thank you, Ben. Thank you, Joe. Thank you to all of our attendees, especially, and all of our guests. It's been a ton of fun. We're going to do some cool things in the new year, and happy holidays, happy new year. And we'll see you in January. Stay safe.
Thanks so much to you guys at Adage. Great job helping us put this together this year. Take care.